I never truly got over Olivia's disappearance. It had been 7 years since she vanished without a trace, 7 years of restless nights and unanswered questions. One moment she was walking home from my apartment and the next gone. No calls, no messages, nothing. The police searched for months, chasing every lead, but as time passed, so did their determination. Eventually, they labeled her case cold, and the world moved on. But I never did. I tried to, I really did. I went through the motions, work, casual dating, even therapy, but nothing filled the void. Olivia was the love of my life, and the way she disappeared, it didn't make sense. Then last week, something changed. It happened when I was helping my parents clear out my childhood home before they sold it. I was sorting through the attic when I stumbled upon an old box labeled with my name. Inside were some forgotten mementos, a few childhood drawings, old baseball cards, and then a leather-bound notebook. My fingers trembled as I pulled it out. The initials OL were etched into the cover. Olivia Lane. For a moment I couldn't breathe. This was hers. My heart pounded in my chest as I opened it. The first few pages were filled with Olivia's neat, slanted handwriting, detailing random thoughts, song lyrics, and sketches. But as I flipped through, the entries darkened. And then I found a page dated 3 days before she disappeared. October 14, 2017. I don't know what to do. I think someone is following me. It started last week. At first I thought I was imagining things, shadows at the corner of my vision, a prickle at the back of my neck. But then, yesterday, I saw him. A man standing across the street from my apartment. He was wearing a dark coat, just standing there, watching. I told Alex, but he laughed it off, said I was being paranoid. Maybe I am. But then, the notes started showing up. Small, folded pieces of paper slipped under my door at night. No handwriting, just printed words. The first one said, "You shouldn't have seen that. I don't know what they mean. I haven't seen anything. At least, I don't think I have." A chill ran down my spine. I had no idea Olivia had been dealing with this. She never told me. I turned the page. October 15, 2017. I found another note. This time it was inside my apartment. I locked my doors, I know I did. The note was on my pillow when I came home from work. Stay silent. I feel sick, I don't know who to tell. My grip on the notebook tightened. My mind was racing. This wasn't just some random disappearance. Someone had been stalking Olivia. Someone had been inside her apartment. I needed to know more. I flipped through the pages, skimming through frantic scribbles, descriptions of footsteps outside her window, phone calls where no one spoke, Olivia slowly unraveling in ink. Then the final entry. October 17, 2017. I think I finally understand. I saw him again, but this time I saw his face. And I know him. Oh my God, I know him. I need to talk to Alex. If something happens to me, tell him to look at the lake. I felt like the air had been sucked out of my lungs. It's the lake. 7 years ago, when Olivia disappeared, they never searched the lake. They searched the woods, the roads, the abandoned buildings, but the lake, no one ever thought to look there. I didn't know what Olivia had seen. I didn't know who she had recognized, but I knew one thing. I was going to the lake. It's the lake. The drive there felt surreal. My hands were clammy against the steering wheel, my heart beat a steady drum in my ears. I hadn't been to Lake Hollow since Olivia went missing. It was a secluded place, a small, still body of water surrounded by dense trees. It had been one of our favorite spots. We used to sit on the dock for hours, talking about the future, watching the sky change colors. Now the place felt eerie. I parked my car at the edge of the tree line and stepped out. The air smelled damp, the wind rustling through the leaves. I walked toward the shore, my pulse quickening with every step. And then I saw it. A wooden box, half buried in the mud near the water's edge. I stumbled forward, my fingers shaking as I dug it out. The wood was rotten, the lid loose. I pried it open. Inside there were old, water-stained papers, and a phone. A phone that looked exactly like Olivia. My breath hitched as I pulled it out. The screen was shattered, but when I pressed the power button, it flickered to life. There was one video. One single file, dated the night Olivia disappeared. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. The screen was dark at first, the camera shaky, and then Olivia's face came into focus. She was whispering, her eyes wide with terror. "If you're watching this, I don't have much time." She looked over her shoulder. The background was dark, but I could make out the faint reflection of water. "I know who's been following me. I know who's been leaving the notes." She sucked in a breath, her hands trembling. "Wait." A sudden noise cut her off, a rustling sound. Olivia gasped, her eyes widening in fear. Then the camera jerked violently. The screen spun, crashing to the ground. And then a voice. A voice I recognized. A voice I had known my entire life. "You should have stayed quiet, Olivia." My blood turned to ice. The video ended. I was frozen. My mind refused to process what I had just heard. Because the voice in that video, the one speaking to Olivia before everything went dark, was my brother's. I dropped the phone. My body felt like it wasn't my own. My head was spinning, my breath coming in sharp gasps. No, this couldn't be real. It's my brother. Nathan. Nathan, who had been by my side through everything, who held me when I cried the night Olivia disappeared, who helped me put up missing person posters all over town, who swore he'd do anything to find her. My stomach lurched. I staggered back from the wooden box, from the phone, from the truth clawing its way into my brain. The voice in the video, it wasn't a mistake, it was his. I forced myself to breathe, think there had to be an explanation. Maybe Olivia was wrong, maybe she was scared, confused, maybe. Footsteps. Behind me. I turned so fast I nearly lost my balance. Nathan stood at the edge of the trees, watching me. My throat went dry. His face was unreadable, his dark eyes locked onto mine. He was taller than me, broader, stronger. I hadn't told him I was coming here. He shouldn't be here. My pulse hammered in my ears. Run. Every instinct screamed at me to move, but my body wouldn't listen. Nathan took a step forward. "Alex." His voice was calm, too calm. "You shouldn't be here." The brother's lies. I clenched my fists, my mind racing. "You knew," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "You knew what happened to her." Nathan exhaled, his gaze flickering to the phone still lying in the dirt. "Alex, listen to me." "No," my voice cracked. I took a step back, rage and horror colliding in my chest. "You were there, weren't you? The night she disappeared." "You," my throat closed around the words. Nathan sighed. "I didn't want you to find out this way." A chill ran down my spine. "This way." "So it's true," I whispered. Nathan was silent. Then finally he spoke. "You need to leave this alone, Alex." Something inside me snapped. "Are you fucking serious?" My voice echoed across the lake. "Leave it alone. Olivia's gone because of you." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I didn't kill her." I flinched. "Didn't kill her." That meant, "She's alive." My voice was barely audible. Nathan hesitated. That split second of silence was all I needed. She was alive. I took a step toward him, my entire body shaking. "Where is she?" Nathan didn't answer. I grabbed his shirt, shoving him back. "Where is she, Nathan?" His hands closed around my wrists, his grip like iron. For a moment I thought he was going to hit me, but instead he sighed, looking past me, toward the lake. "She was never supposed to disappear," he said quietly. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. "She was supposed to be scared," he continued, "not missing." I wanted to hit him, I wanted to tear him apart, but I forced myself to listen. Nathan exhaled. "It started with the notes, the phone calls, the break-ins. That wasn't me, Alex." My breath hitched. Then who? I demanded. Nathan hesitated. And then, a gunshot. The sound exploded through the air. I ducked instinctively, my ears ringing. Nathan cursed, yanking me down behind a tree. Another shot rang out, splintering the bark beside us. I barely had time to process what was happening before Nathan grabbed my arm. We have to move. Who the hell is shooting at us? I shouted. Nathan didn't answer. He pulled me into the trees, his grip tight. He was scared. I had never seen Nathan scared before. We ran. A web of secrets. We didn't stop until we reached the old service road leading away from the lake. My chest burned, my legs ached, but I barely noticed. I spun to face Nathan. Start talking now. Nathan wiped sweat from his forehead. His hands were shaking. There's a reason Olivia disappeared, he said, and it wasn't just me. I crossed my arms, waiting. Nathan ran a hand through his hair. She saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Cold fear curled in my stomach. What? Nathan hesitated. Then softly he said, a murder. I felt the world tilt beneath me. What? Nathan swallowed. A week before she disappeared, Olivia was at the wrong place at the wrong time. She saw something, Alex, something that got her on someone's radar. She came to me panicked and he exhaled sharply. I told her I'd handle it. I stared at him horrified. So you stalked her, broke into her apartment, left threats. Nathan met my gaze. I was trying to protect her. A bitter laugh escaped me, by scaring her. I needed them to think she was breaking, that she wouldn't talk. It was insane, all of it. I gritted my teeth. Who Nathan, who was after her? Nathan's face darkened. The sheriff. I went still. No, I whispered, no, that's. Nathan shook his head. You remember that missing guy, the drifter they said skipped town? I did. It had been a minor story. Some guy passing through, then suddenly gone. No one had really cared. Nathan's voice was grim. He didn't leave town, Alex. The sheriff killed him. The words slammed into me. Olivia saw it happen, Nathan continued, and when she realized what she'd seen, she was terrified. I tried to breathe, to make sense of it. The sheriff, the same man who led the investigation into Olivia's disappearance. The same man who had sat in our living room and told my parents he'd do everything to find her. I felt sick. You have to be wrong, I said. Why would the sheriff? Another gunshot. Nathan grabbed my arm. Move. We ran again. The safe house. I didn't know where we were going until we arrived. Nathan led me to an old cabin deep in the woods. It looked abandoned, windows boarded up, door reinforced with heavy locks. He knocked a pattern, 3 quick raps, then 2 slow. A moment later, the door creaked open. And standing there was Olivia. I forgot how to breathe. She looked different. Her hair was shorter, her face thinner, but it was her. Her eyes met mine, and for a second, something flickered across her face, pain. Then she pulled me inside. The door slammed shut behind me. I turned to her, my mind reeling. You're alive, my voice cracked. Olivia's expression softened. Yeah. Tears burned my eyes. I wanted to hold her, to demand answers, to scream at Nathan, at all of them. Instead, I whispered, why didn't you tell me? Olivia glanced at Nathan. I couldn't, she said. I shook my head. Why? She hesitated. Then, because Alex, she murmured, they would have killed you too. My heart nearly stopped. This wasn't over. For a long time, no one spoke. I stood in the dimly lit cabin, staring at Olivia, my mind a swirling mess of emotions. Relief, anger, fear. Nathan leaned against the wall, rubbing his temples, while Olivia locked the door behind us, double-checking the bolts. Her movements were careful, practiced. Like she had done this 1,000 times. I swallowed hard. How long have you been here? Olivia hesitated. Since the night I disappeared. My breath caught. 5 years, 5 years. I clenched my fists, and you didn't think I deserved to know. Her expression faltered. I wanted to Alex, but she glanced at Nathan. It wasn't safe. I let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Not safe. Do you have any idea what I went through? What your family went through? We thought you were dead, Olivia. My voice cracked. I spent years searching for you, begging for answers, and you were here. I didn't have a choice, she whispered. I shook my head. Bullshit. Nathan sighed. Alex, listen. No, I turned on him. You knew she was alive, this whole time. And instead of telling me, you let me break apart, let her family break apart, while you played hero. Nathan's jaw tightened. It wasn't about playing hero. Then what the hell was it about? Keeping you alive, Olivia answered softly. I flinched. She stepped closer, her voice barely above a whisper. You don't understand, Alex. The sheriff, he isn't just some small-town cop. He's dangerous. He has people working for him. If he even suspected I was alive, he would have come after you too. I exhaled sharply, running a hand through my hair. It was too much, too many lies, too many secrets. I wanted to believe them, I really did, but 5 years of silence had left scars. And right now, I wasn't sure if I could forgive them. The hunter becomes the hunted. A heavy silence settled between us. Then Olivia's eyes darted to the window. He knows. Nathan stiffened. What? She backed away from the window, her hands shaking. He knows Alex found the diary. That means he knows Alex was at the lake. Cold fear shot through me. Nathan swore under his breath, we have to move. Olivia shook her head. It's too late. A moment later, headlights cut through the trees. My stomach dropped. A black SUV rolled to a stop just outside the cabin. Doors opened, heavy boots crunched against the gravel. Nathan reached for the gun at his waist. Alex, get down. I barely had time to react before the first gunshot shattered the window. No place left to run. Glass exploded, raining down onto the floor. Olivia grabbed my arm, yanking me away from the window. Nathan fired back, the deafening sound ringing in my ears. Maury footsteps, Maury voices. We know you're in there, a man shouted. Come out now and we'll make this quick. My heart pounded. Nathan shoved a backpack into my hands. There's an exit through the back, take it and run. I shook my head. I'm not leaving you. Alex, go. Olivia grabbed my hand. Come on. We moved fast. Bullets slammed into the walls as we sprinted toward the back door. Olivia threw it open, and we burst into the woods. The cold air strung my lungs, but I didn't stop. Olivia was ahead of me, her movements precise, like she knew exactly where to go. I followed blindly, my breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind us, I heard shouting. Then a single, piercing scream. I stopped, my stomach twisted. Nathan. I turned back. We have to go back for him. Olivia grabbed my face, her eyes wild. If we go back, we die. Tears blurred my vision, but he. She squeezed my hand. Keep running. I didn't want to. But I did. A ghost town. We ran until my legs gave out. The forest thinned, opening into an abandoned road. The old motel stood at the edge of the clearing, its neon sign flickering dimly. Olivia pulled me inside. The place smelled like mildew and dust. She led me to a back room, locking the door behind us. Then finally, she turned to me. Her face was pale, her hands still trembling. Nathan's dead, she said softly. I swallowed the lump in my throat. I wanted to believe she was wrong, that somehow Nathan had made it, but the scream echoed in my head. I sank onto the bed, my body numb. Olivia sat beside me. Neither of us spoke. Because we both knew. This wasn't over. The motel room was silent, except for our breathing. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands gripping my knees so tightly my fingers ached. Olivia was across from me, her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. Nathan was gone. I couldn't process it. My brother, my only family left, was dead. And I had left him behind. A sharp, suffocating guilt lodged itself in my chest. I squeezed my eyes shut, but the sound of his scream wouldn't leave my head. I should have gone back, I whispered. Olivia flinched. Alex, bullets ripped through the shop. Carter grabbed a shotgun from beneath the counter and fired back, forcing the sheriff's men to take cover. Olivia clung to my arm, her breathing ragged. "We can't stay here," she shouted over the gunfire. I scanned the room, my heart hammering. The back door, it was our only chance. I grabbed Olivia's hand. "We make a run for it, now." Carter fired another shot. "I'll cover you." I hesitated. "What about you?" He smirked. "I'll be right behind you." It was a lie, we both knew it. But I nodded anyway. We moved fast. Olivia and I sprinted toward the back door as Carter laid down cover fire. The sheriff's men shouted, their footsteps pounding closer. We burst into the alley, cold air hitting my face like a slap. A black SUV screeched to a stop at the entrance of the alleyway. The doors flew open. 2 armed men jumped out. I shoved Olivia behind me. Then bang! One of the men dropped, a bullet between his eyes. "Carter!" He stood in the doorway, shotgun still raised. "Run!" he bellowed. We didn't look back. The final stand. The woods swallowed us whole. Olivia and I ran blindly, the branches cutting at our skin. I could still hear the distant gunfire, but I forced myself to focus. We had to get to the main road, if we could steal a car. A gunshot whizzed past my ear. Olivia screamed. I turned just in time to see the sheriff emerging from the trees, his revolver aimed at us. I pushed Olivia behind me. The sheriff tilted his head, smiling. "Did you really think you could win, boy?" My hands clenched into fists. "You killed Nathan." He chuckled. "And you just left him there, didn't you?" Rage boiled inside me. The sheriff took a step closer. "You should have walked away, Alex. You should have let her die." His eyes flickered to Olivia. "Now I have to clean up the mess." He raised the gun. And then, a gunshot echoed through the forest. But it wasn't from him. The sheriff staggered, eyes wide with shock. Blood bloomed across his chest. He collapsed to his knees. Behind him, Olivia stood, shaking, a gun clutched in her trembling hands. Her eyes met mine, filled with tears. "He was never going to stop," she whispered. The sheriff gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. Then he was gone. It was over. Carter didn't make it. We found his body near the shop the next morning. He had taken down 3 of the sheriff's men before they got him. The FBI arrived later that day. The video Carter had given us, it was enough to blow the whole thing open. The sheriff's corruption, the murders, the trafficking. The town would never be the same. But neither would we. Olivia and I left. We didn't look back. We had won. But at what cost? As we drove away, Olivia reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. I looked at her, seeing the same haunted expression I felt in my own heart. We were free. But some scars never heal. I shouldn't have run. She let out a shaky breath. "If you went back, you'd be dead too." I looked up at her, anger and grief warring inside me, and that's supposed to make me feel better. Her gaze softened. "No, but it's the truth." I wanted to argue, to scream, but I didn't have the energy. Instead, I buried my face in my hands. "What now?" She hesitated. "We can't stay here long. They'll find us." A cold dread settled in my gut. "What do they want?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Why kill Nathan? Why keep hunting you?" Olivia's expression darkened, because I still know too much. I swallowed. About the murder. She shook her head. About all of them. My blood ran cold. Secrets buried deep. Olivia stood up and started packing. The drifter I saw get murdered, he wasn't the first. My heart pounded. What? She nodded. Nathan was right. The sheriff has been covering up crimes for years, but it's not just him. She took a shaky breath. There's a whole network, she whispered. Cops, judges, even some of the local business owners. They've been running something out of this town, something dangerous. Drugs, human trafficking, money laundering. I don't even know the full extent of it, but I do know one thing. She turned to me, her eyes dark with fear. They kill anyone who gets in their way. I exhaled sharply, and you got in their way. She nodded. I leaned back against the wall, trying to keep my thoughts from spiraling. Everything made sense now. The threats, the break-ins, the way the sheriff had taken over the investigation into Olivia's disappearance. They hadn't been looking for her. They had been making sure she was gone. And now they knew I was involved too. I gritted my teeth. So what's the plan? Olivia hesitated. We run. I frowned. That's it. We don't have a choice. I shook my head. No, I'm not running for the rest of my life. We have to end this. Her jaw clenched. Alex. We have proof. I gestured toward my backpack where I had shoved her diary. Your story, the recordings. The sheriff's men might have killed Nathan, but they don't get to win. She hesitated, conflict flickering in her eyes. Then finally she exhaled. I know where we can go. Into the lion's den. We left the motel before dawn. The streets were empty, the town eerily quiet. I kept expecting to see headlights behind us, to hear the crunch of boots on pavement, but the world remained still. Too still. Olivia led me through back alleys, avoiding the main roads. We're going to someone I trust, she murmured. Who? She hesitated. An old friend. I didn't press her for details. Right now, I just needed to believe she had a plan. After half an hour of walking, we reached an auto repair shop on the outskirts of town. The lights were off, but Olivia knocked 3 times on the side door. A few seconds later, the door creaked open. A man in his late 40s stood there, his grey-streaked hair disheveled. His eyes widened when he saw Olivia. Jesus Christ. She managed a weak smile. Hi, Carter. The man, Carter, ushered us inside, locking the door behind us. He turned to Olivia. I thought you were dead. Not yet, she muttered. His gaze flickered to me. And who's this? My boyfriend, she said simply. Carter snorted. You've got terrible taste in men, kid. I scowled. Excuse me. Olivia ignored me. We need help. Carter sighed, rubbing his temples. Of course you do. He led us to a cluttered back office, shoving aside stacks of old newspapers. Start talking. And so Olivia did. She told him everything, the murder, the cover-ups, the sheriff's involvement. Carter listened without interrupting, his face unreadable. When she finished, he let out a low whistle. Jesus. I leaned forward. Can you help us? Carter exhaled. I can get you out of town. New identities, safe passage. But if you're planning on taking these bastards down, he shook his head. That's suicide. I clenched my fists. We can't let them get away with this. Carter studied me for a long moment. Then finally he stood. I might have something. The breaking point. Carter led us to the back of the shop, where he rummaged through a pile of old boxes. After a moment, he pulled out an old USB drive. This, he said, holding it up, is a copy of a video I got my hands on years ago. Olivia's breath hitched. What kind of video? Carter's face darkened. The kind that gets people killed. He plugged the USB into an old laptop. A grainy video file popped up on the screen. And then, I felt my stomach turn. It was the sheriff. He was in a dark room, talking to two men I didn't recognize, but what made my blood run cold was the body on the floor. A man bound and gagged, the drifter. The sheriff pulled out a knife. And the rest was a nightmare. Olivia turned away, covering her mouth. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Carter exhaled. This was recorded 3 years ago. I've been sitting on it, trying to figure out how to use it without getting myself killed. I swallowed hard. This is it. This is what we need. Olivia looked up at him, her voice hoarse. Can you get this to the FBI? Carter hesitated, then he nodded. Yeah, but it won't be easy. I took a deep breath, then let's do it.